There are people hurting. Some of them are really angry about it. Rather than turning our back on those people, we'll do what Labor does best. We will work to make the real decisions that improve the lives of the Australian people.
Labor's 50th conference, for a party in its 135th year, eager to differentiate itself from divided and erratic rivals, while poking fun at foes.
We've been reminded this week of that time-honoured political truth. If you can't govern your dog, you can't govern the country.
And friends, courtesy of the host Premier, taking a cheeky shot at his counterparts for always demanding something from the Prime Minister.
Premier Allen asking for money for a rail project. Premier Cook asking for everyone else's GST money. Then Premier Minns asking for all the GST money back.
A dose of levity before a stark warning for his own side about the risks it faces.
The first is complacency. Complacency in the idea that a splintered Conservative movement automatically renders Labor as electoral favourites.
And a shot at one nation's populism.
It's always struck me as a paradox that the more a political party bangs on about personal responsibility, the more likely they are to find a group of people to blame.
Then it was the Prime Minister's turn with a reminder to the party faithful that Labor hasn't always been this powerful.
Delegates through 50 national conferences, this is only the 15th time we have gathered with federal Labor in majority government.
A political dominance now threatened by an economy under pressure.
The last decade has inflicted one global shock after another, and people have been given every reason to feel like the economy is simply not working for them. That goes deeper than sentiment. It's a reality people are up against.
Labor's response will be to continue cost of living relief, including today's expanded payments for healthcare students undertaking training.
We will expand paid prac to physio and occupational therapy, clinical psychology, pharmacy and podiatry, speech pathology, audiology, radiography, rehab therapies and our future paramedics. This is real help with the cost of living for tens of thousands of Australians.
Labor's approach at this conference has been to demonstrate a clear contrast to its political opponents, emphasising stability in a chaotic world.
In every way that matters, the Liberals, Nationals and One Nation are already a coalition. They all want to make it easier to sack workers. They all want to make it harder for young Australians to buy a home. And they all want to slash the jobs and industries powered by renewables and spend billions on nuclear reactors instead. And everything else, all those attention-seeking culture wars imported from overseas, all those trips around the world to talk Australia down, cannot disguise the fact that none of them have anything new or anything positive to offer our country.
For all the displays of unity and resolve, there were fault lines, with a union-backed push to put a tax on gas exports falling short.
There's a growing movement that are saying that that we should not be giving away our resources so cheaply.
I absolutely recognise and respect the role that this conference plays, but I think we need to respect what Australians overwhelmingly want, and they want us to move on this issue.
Labor's platform will not include an explicit gas tax, but it does call for a fairer return from natural resources. The conference also carried a motion moved by the Labor Environmental Action Network that opens the door to reducing the diesel fuel rebate for miners.
Our new platform should scream that Labor are serious about climate action, and no one who reads it should be surprised when we use our time in government to deliver it.
Concern about artificial intelligence was another source of agreement from the conference floor.
Under the Liberals, foreign technology companies were allowed to erode conditions and strip value from our industries. I call it the Uberisation of the Australian economy. We cannot let that happen as we move into the world of AI.
Unlike notorious conferences of the past, which saw rows over Palestine, boat turnbacks, same-sex marriage and uranium mining, day one of this year's edition has already demonstrated the Prime Minister's grip on the party. Debates have been largely settled behind closed doors. Signs of open dissent have been scarce, all underscoring the party's unity.
We choose progress over protest. We choose purpose over chaos. We choose unity over division. We choose outcomes over outrage. We choose real change that makes a real difference. Thank you, delegates.
Treasurer Jim Chalmers joins me now from the conference floor in Adelaide. Treasurer, welcome.
Thanks very much, Sarah.
Now, both the Prime Minister and you attacked One Nation today as a single entity with the coalition. Isn't One Nation equally a threat to Labor's base?
Well, the point that we were making is whether it's the Liberal Party, One Nation or the National Party, they've all got a divisive anti-worker agenda which would make the pressures that people are under right now worse rather than better. I didn't dwell on that in my speech. My speech was overwhelmingly about making sure that the economy can work for more Australians by delivering that real and meaningful change in the face of accelerating change in our community and in our economy and in the face of those intensifying global and generational pressures. Now, obviously, in a conference like this, we recognise that politics right now around the world, including in Australia, is pretty volatile. And overwhelmingly our focus is not on preying on the anxieties that people feel right now about all of this change, but actually addressing the root causes of people's feelings of disconnection or being disregarded. That's more important to us than any of the political analysis.
You say you didn't dwell, but there was plenty of dwelling on One Nation today. Many of those voters who have moved to One Nation, especially this year, are doing so after seeing their real wages go backwards. Can you stem voter anger if you can't lift real wages?
Well, I think that is a reflection of the very substantial economic challenges that we face here in Australia and indeed in economies like ours right around the world. We do have our fair share of challenges, both domestic and global. They are intensified by a war on the other side of the world, the end of which can't come soon enough. So we recognise those pressures. Inflation is higher than we want it to be. We have had decent wages growth. We have had real wages growth in 8 of the last 10 quarters. But we know that people are doing it tough. And in the Prime Minister's speech and in my own speech, we've recognised the legitimate pressures that people are under. But more than recognise them and acknowledge them, we're actually acting to do something about it, helping with the cost of living, getting the budget in better condition, cutting taxes, dealing with these long-standing issues in the housing market which have locked young people out for too long. So in addition to acknowledging these pressures that people are under, we're actually acting on it. The point that we made briefly today was our political opponents, they seek to prey on those pressures and those anxieties that people feel at the same time as their anti-worker agenda would make things worse rather than better.
You say out of the 10 quarters, but you don't say that real wages have been going backwards since December and will continue to do so for the rest of this year. This is not an entirely external problem. Just coming back to this idea, you can't expect One Nation just to implode. What is your specific plan to address the issue with real wages going backwards now?
Well, the reason I made that point, Sarah, was to acknowledge that inflation is higher than anybody wants it to be right now. Part of that is a consequence of a war in the Middle East, but we've had these inflationary pressures in our economy, and that's part of the real wages challenge that we've got. Now, when we came to office, real wages were falling very sharply. They've risen in 8 of the last 10 quarters. You're quite right to point out that higher inflation right now puts those real wages at risk. And so our plan is to get wages moving again. We've actually had wages growth higher than 3% in every quarter we've been in office. I don't think it was higher than 3% under our predecessors. We've supported increases to the minimum wage. We've made sure that there are wage rises in the care economy. Same job, same pay. We've done a whole range of things to boost wages in our economy because deliberately we believe that one of the best ways to help with these cost of living pressures is to make sure that people are paid decent wages. That's been our reason for being for more than 100 years, and it's our reason for being now, to make sure people earn more and keep more of what they earn. That's why we're cutting taxes 5 times in 3 different ways. All of this is about recognising the big pressure on incomes here and around the world, not just acknowledging that, but doing something about it.
Of course, Australia is an outlier in its inflation numbers, but I want to move to some of the things that Bill Kelty said, obviously, a Labor luminary, many important moments at many Labor conferences in the past. He said Australia's malaise is productivity has fallen, investment is too low, our growth is non-existent, but taxes are increasing, government expenditure is increasing. At the apex of that productivity crisis is a crisis of productivity in construction. Can you solve the crisis in Australia if you don't solve the worker shortage and lower the cost of construction?
Well, there's a lot of issues in those questions,
Yep.
Sarah. I begin by saying I respect Bill and I respect you, but you said a moment ago when you were referencing the economic conditions in Australia, both yourself and Bill, you've got to make the full comparison with the rest of the world. We've also got extremely low unemployment. We've got very good unemployment figures today, another 76,000 jobs created, 1.3 million on our watch, 5 out of every 6 of them in the private sector, most of them full-time. And so we do have a lot going for us as well, even at the same time as we've got a lot coming at us in our economy. Now, the productivity challenge has not just been acknowledged by me in the last couple of days, but indeed over our time in office. This is a challenge the Australian economy has had for decades now. And if there was an easy way to turn it around quickly, somebody would have done that already. You need to act on a range of fronts simultaneously. That's what we're doing. There hasn't been a budget more focused on productivity in the last quarter of a century or more than the budget that Katie Gallagher and I handed down in May. Now, when it comes to construction, obviously, when we are looking to build more houses to get housing supply into a much better place, obviously we need to train more workers. That's why it's so important. We've got the incentives for apprentices. We've got the free TAFE. We're making sure that we are boosting wages where we can. We do need to attract more people into that really important industry, and that's what we are attempting to do.
Let's move on to the issue of taxing resources. This new language, as Jacob Greber just referred to, in Labor's national platform on resource taxing. You've been pushing this for a while. Do you feel vindicated to have that language sitting there?
Well, I think that language in the platform reflected the balance that we have been seeking to strike. You know, I reformed the PRRT to make sure that Australians got a bigger return sooner for offshore gas. I acknowledge that there are people around the country, and including people in our movement, who would like us to go further, but we did take some important steps in that regard to get a fairer return when it comes to the taxation of our natural resources. But we've also made it clear, and the platform recognises this too, that we're very conscious of our reputation as a reliable supplier. We need to make sure that we are conscious of those international partnerships, particularly at a time when fuel security is at a premium. And also at a time when we're working very hard to put gas reservation in place, and that's a huge change, a very, very important change to reserve more Australian gas for Australians and for Australian industry. And so the reason why a gas tax has not been on our agenda is because we've got other priorities, whether it's reservation, the PRRT changes I've already made, or making sure that we are a reliable international supplier. That's the government's focus.
At the same time, the health of the budget in the future depends on these very ambitious NDIS changes. You must be glad to have the potential of introducing more tax on gas exports sort of in your back pocket if those NDIS changes don't come to fruition and secure the budget as you have predicted they will.
Oh, look, I don't see it the way that you've described it. You're right to acknowledge, Sarah, that there has been substantial budget repair, including when it comes to the future of the NDIS, making sure that it is sustainable and can deliver for people who rely on it. That is a big part of our reform of the budget. It is one of the reasons why the budget is in much better condition than what we inherited from our predecessors. You know, we've got debt down $200 billion now from that trajectory we were on 4 years ago. We've delivered a couple of surpluses and smaller deficits. The NDIS is an important part of that, but not the only part of that. We know that there's more work to do, and we will continue to look for savings. We'll continue to look for ways to reprioritise spending into the areas that are most important to us, areas like cutting taxes, strengthening Medicare, and this long record that we have now after 4 years of delivering that real and meaningful and positive change.
And just a yes or no on this, you obviously went to Labor conferences when you were a young fella in the party. Which was more fun, that version or this version?
Oh, this version, because we're doing stuff. We're in government, and it's the privilege of a lifetime to be Treasurer in an Albanese Labor government, to come to a conference like this, have people who are, you know, looking for ways to make the economy work for more Australians. You know, the reason I got involved in this movement, the reason I joined this party as a teenager was because I wanted the opportunity to make a meaningful difference, and that's what this is all about. That's what our platform's all about as well, and so being here as a Labor Treasurer is a really special thing.
Jim Chalmers, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thanks, Sarah.